Bill is incredibly great collaborator. He would make me feel like I had the room to play. In terms of like shot choice, there's a fade out when the movie within the movie ends. It has to have a tape splice from the early 50s. It's an Easter egg. I sent it to him that night and I said, "Did you see my little printer dissolve?" So he's like, "Of course, I loved it. I loved it." He's so clued into craft and the authenticity and the macro and the micro.
Brian Cates, ACE, how are you today? Thank you for
I'm
coming.
great. Thank you for having me.
Sure, it's nice to see you again. It's been quite a while,
Mhm.
but I wanted to catch up with you. We're talking today about Kiss of the Spider Woman and also Jeff Buckley, the documentary. To some
Mhm.
degree, we're gonna cram as much as we can into a half an hour here, so we'll see what we can do.
Sure. That's great.
But since having just watched Kiss of the Spider Woman, taken
Mhm.
a bunch of notes, being aware of, not super familiar with the book, the play, the film, the
Mhm.
play, the film, and this has gone through a number of revolutions around the creative sun, so to
Yeah,
speak.
it has. It has. Yeah.
And I guess I wanted to ask you how familiar were you with the material, and then how did this opportunity present itself to you?
Not, I mean, I wasn't, not a lot. I mean, I had seen the film, the 1985, 84, 85 film,
Hmm.
which is really good. And I knew about the Broadway show. I knew very well because I was actually a PA on a movie that was starring Maria Conchita Alonso, who was playing Spider-Woman in the evenings. So every day I was syncing dailies, but every day they had to get her from set to the curtain on time. So in my mind, when I probably didn't have enough money to buy Broadway tickets, I knew this was the show that was in the forefront of my mind, and I knew that it was a great, like a very important queer story based on everything about the musical and Cantor and Ebb and the movie, the other movie. And but when I got the job, I read the book, and I watched YouTube. Well, you could watch the Broadway show on YouTube, but you could also watch it at the Performing Arts Library in New York,
Hmm.
which is a really tremendous resource, which is very old school. You go in and you put on headphones and you have an assigned time and a cubicle, and it's like you're getting into like like medieval archives or something. And but you can watch a very good version of the show there, as well as there was a workshop production of the show that was done in 1990. Um, and a lot of the DNA of our film from Bill's script comes from that original production, as well as which Terrence McNally also wrote, as well as the Broadway show, the book that Terrence McNally wrote also,
Hmm.
which he adapted, and the novel, the original novel, which was an Argentinian novel from the 70s. So Bill really created his own version that speaks to you know, the things that he knows so brilliantly well, old Hollywood and monster movies and Hollywood divas, and it's all there in the original novel, and he just created the version that was the most electric for film for him. And it was a novel about movies, so it
Right.
deserved to be to always be a movie. My friends and I would make little videos in our backyards, imitations of Indiana Jones and Star Wars. Eventually that need to tell stories became more of a technical interest and an interest in the art. To me, what's exciting is using cinema in its full potential, which is rhythm and sound design and music. Our job is to set up expectations and then deliver on them. I'm Brian Cates, and this is my course in film editing.
I mean, the juxtaposition of at first I was watching saying like, this is really hard because as a stage, can you tell how much of a stage production is locked into that cell that we are, right? It's like it gives you a limited amount of vocabulary as a filmmaker, as an editor, because you're just there with them, right? So you've got a certain amount of tools to work with, and then it just explodes into this lush, not quite widescreen, right? Like you sort of define your universes,
Yeah.
and you sort of liberate us from the prison,
Hmm.
by going into this, totally different context,
Hmm.
which is so well drawn from, what was it, Molina's mind.
Yeah.
But that's part of it, is like the balancing act. I'm sure you had some sort of schematic, either mentally or emotionally, of, you know, when it becomes his told story versus his fantasy, right? And he uses it to sort of self-medicate. It's different than it is when he's telling the story to Valentina, like it's or Valentine, right?
Mhm.
Valentina would be okay. So, how much of that was a discussion you had versus something that was very clearly mapped out?
Well, the way that it blur, I mean, the way that I love that you called it self-therapy, or I can't remember what you said. Yeah,
Self-medication. Yeah.
he is self-medicating, but yeah, he's creating a fantasy that is both based on this actual film that he loves and he's seen countless times, but he's also he's also making the subtext between himself and Valentine into
Hmm.
a movie and using the movie as the vehicle to talk about their relationship, which I think
Right.
is so clever and subtle actually and blurry. You don't really know when it's happening. So I can't say that there was a I mean the differences in when it's one versus the other are a little bit based on the score, and a little bit based on how much of the movie is in the room with them. I mean, at a certain point, the shower curtain, the bathroom curtain projects the Spider Woman onto it,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
which is a, you know, it's not really happening. It's some kind of fantasy, delusion, drug.
Right. But that's the only time it's in
Yeah.
the room with them,
Yeah.
right? Because it's
But the music
otherwise,
follows them. The music does
yeah.
follow sometimes. And
Mhm.
that was a discussion in terms of how much music should bleed. And it was really I mean, bleed, i.e. from the film into becoming score inside the cell. And
Mhm.
that really changed a lot. I mean, in the script, it's not clear exactly where. Sometimes it is, but I really just was allowed to play. And
Mhm.
that's part of the thing about the job for me that was so exciting is that the editing of the music, which of course I did with Get Any Web, the actual music editor, but I did a lot of it also in the picture stage, was really to figure out how to take this score and use it, or I should say use the songs in the film and convert them into score and then go back and forth between one and the other. And that to me is so much fun. And so it's so liberating to know that music exists as a not just as a song, but as a palette of rhythms and instrument sounds and like all this emotional texture that you can build out of these really both stems. I mean,
Mhm. So
the-
you would have
yeah.
the ability to use stems from the actual production numbers, weave them
Yeah.
into the prison cell, and
Yeah, for sure. Well, at first I would take the soundtrack of the two Broadway soundtracks because they recorded it twice, and get rid of the vocals and kind of figure out what kind of palette I could create using different numbers from the show as
Mhm.
score. And that happened like very early on. It happened in the dailies stage because I realized that I couldn't play everything dry. I mean, we did have this conceit where we didn't want to use score in the cell, but I think we always knew that eventually we would break that rule because at a certain point he's narrating his own his own love
Right.
story
Mhm.
and it made sense for it to bleed. But we did know that in the coda at the end of the movie in Buenos Aires, we would use score as if he suddenly were in his own drama. So
Right. No,
like
and I think it hard cuts the first time he goes to it. It's a very jarring edit to the movie.
into the movie.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. It's funny. It was a little bit softer in other versions. We had a title card and there was a fade in, but it felt better to just sort of like rip the Band-Aid off, and also like there's something wonderful
Mhm.
about that. The
Yeah.
the
No, it
aspect
explodes, and
ratio, yeah, it
it's like a
explodes
prison break because you're just out of of the whole world.
at minute
Um,
11. I know. Like,
so
when are we going to see the movie? 11 minutes.
yeah, but the dynamic is great because I think they have a really they had a really interesting, you know, dynamic between them. So I think that actually worked really well. And I think, when you kind of get over, Andor in Argentina, it's like sort of, you
With a
know,
sister who was killed in a previous war. Oh, sorry, no, it's
yeah,
blood,
well,
blood
yeah,
broth.
that's true. Wow. Oh my God. I just realizing you stole the backstory, did
I
you?
know. Yeah. No,
Well,
no.
I had another question sort of off. I mean, it leads into sort of more of the sort of the exercise of putting it together, but
Mhm.
you hadn't worked with Bill prior, right?
No, I had.
Oh, you had. Okay, I didn't know
Just
that.
once. No, we did the TV pilot for the Big C.
Okay,
It's the Showtime series that stars Laura Linney.
all right,
Um, so this
okay,
was about, I can't remember how many years ago, but Bill called me to do that, and it was one episode, great time. And we were connected through Laura Linney because I had edited her in The Savages and
sure.
a little bit in before that in the Laramie Project. So and Laura's just the best. She's a mensch, and she actually connected us, or she connected Bill to me. So that TV show actually was a very important pivot for in terms of a lot of the projects that I did subsequently.
So you would, because I was going to ask about establishing that trust that, between editor and director, but it seems like that was established then on the pilot, um, to some degree. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
longer
to some
form.
degree.
It's a bigger machine, working on a feature, I'd
Yeah.
imagine. So, were you, did it just sort of instantly click? Were you guys,
Well, Bill, I mean, Bill is incredibly sweet and incredibly he just has great emotional intelligence and can just he's a great collaborator. So he would make me feel safe. He would make me feel like I had the room to play, especially with music, as I just said, but also in terms of like everything from shot choice to there's a moment when um, there's a fade out when the movie within the movie ends, and I I thought it has to have a tape splice. Like if there were a fade out here in a movie from the early 50s, there would be a negative cut with a cement splice into an optical, and there
mm,
would be an optical fade. So I basically created that look
mm,
digitally, and I wasn't sure if anyone would notice it, or if I mean I did this in like for the first assembly of that scene, just thinking that's it's an Easter egg, or maybe people think it's a mistake, right? And as soon as Bill saw that, I sent it to him that night, and I said, did you see my little printer dissolve? And he's like, of course, I loved it. Yeah. Like he's so clued into the craft and the
mm,
authenticity and um, the both the macro and the micro, the nerdy film history and craft stuff, as well as the big storytelling beats and
mm.
narrative. He's got it all.
Yeah, it was very well balanced, in terms of the story. There was at one point I think I was writing, I had a note in here that like, is this where you're sort of telegraphing, foreshadowing his sacrifice? I think it was when there was a very complex sequence where they're warding off the
Hmm.
Spider Woman, and it's kind of going to different places at the same time. I'm like, this, should I know? And I also know too much because I know the story, right? So
Yeah.
coming in cold, you might not say that, but like I thought it was like, is this where you're telling me art imitating life, imitating art is gonna, is where this is gonna land. But I also really thought that the handling of the dance sequences in longer takes was
Hmm.
kind of, I mean, again, a throwback. It really had an
Totally.
old
Yeah.
time musical feel to it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about, Jennifer Lopez. My biggest question in the whole, not my biggest question, but my main, I was like, how in the hell is she 56 years old when she looks like she's 26 years old? I mean,
Vitamins.
but I don't know, but she's got incredible moves.
Exercise.
She's like, I mean, it must be just, we don't know. It's a secret. It's, it'll always be a mystery.
Well,
But
it's not visual effects. I can tell you that. I mean, it's she is dancing. We didn't put her head on top of a fake. Yeah,
no, no,
I
gosh.
wouldn't even joke. It is she is her skills as a dancer are are one of the were one of the great pleasures of cutting the movie because I've cut some dance performances before, but never with the intention of showing the steps with
Mhm.
so much length, with so much integrity to see how the choreography changes over time, and in with foreground and background action, and the way the camera is choreographed through dancing. It's, I mean, I'd never done it on this scale, and of course, it doesn't work if the dancing itself isn't perfect.
Yeah, no, the choreography was amazing,
Yeah,
and I know she started. Well, she was a dancer on In Living Color, right? Way,
yeah,
way, way back. So she's, this is sort of her first
yeah.
discipline, and
Mhm. And
yeah,
then
it's just
acting, yeah, yeah,
yeah, and then singer, and
and
then kind
yeah.
of all three here. So it's really like kind of the role of a lifetime for her. I don't know if that's. I have no idea how she looks at this situation, but
I mean, maybe. I mean, I certainly thought it was in the sense that I know that when she's a great actor in great movies. She's been in great roles many times. But and they're all versions of herself. And this movie, I think, had three versions of herself in three
mhm.
in three different in three roles. And I just love the fact that it's three Jennifers and three Spider-Womans, and it goes with the theme that you were talking about, which is life imitating art, imitating art. Like it's sort of a hall of mirrors where the love of movies generates a kind of um, movie-like existence for these people, and it is kind of a salvation for Molina.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, it protects him from the cruel reality of what happens to him at the end. I don't want to spoil it too much, but
yeah,
it ha
we might.
that happens to him so little in the real world
Mhm,
that it's almost like the to be able to disappear into the comfort of fantasy into the movie
mhm.
allows him to be victorious to it. So it's
Yeah.
like he's
Well,
achieved his goal, right? Really.
I know it's a tragic way, but he also politicizes the movie, and who knows whether the movie itself. I mean, let's assume it did, but let's assuming that Aurora decides that she's one of the people of this farming community in the
Mhm.
mountains of this fake country, and who has to protect against this landlord gangster who's taking their who's converting, who knows what he's doing, he's converting their farms into hotels or something, like, and so it's a very small thread in the film, but she becomes politicized as he becomes politicized, and
Mhm.
whether or not he's inventing this subplot for Aurora because he's in love with Armando, with Valentine, and
Mhm.
Armando is doing that in the film. Who knows? But it's his way to find the political version of himself through this muse. I mean, if
Yeah.
if Aurora is going to throw it all away to be with the people, um, this great career as a fashion designer, as a fashion editor,
Mhm.
in her fancy city life, and become, you know, go back to her roots. I think that Molina feels the same pull toward
He
the
can give up his
revolution.
window dresser life
Yeah,
for the greater cause.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's the sort of long hair Diego Luna at the end too is like he's become him to some degree,
Mhm.
right? He's got the red scarf, he's got the same hair, and he's free, and it's bittersweet, and it's
Mhm.
there's
I never thought of it that way. Yeah, I
yeah,
guess.
because
Yeah.
you don't know how long he's been ultimately imprisoned, right? Because the dictatorship falls apart and they're released, but
Hmm.
his hair is 3 inches longer at least, so it could be a long time. I didn't think he was going to survive. Actually, I thought that the part of the point of it was that he wouldn't be as lucky because they say like no one leaves this place,
Hmm.
and when Molina leaves, there's no way both of them can get out. So, it again, creates a certain tension because he doesn't betray him, but he's liberated, and then you feel like the worst is going to happen after that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
no,
mean, there is a bit of a ticking uh, time bomb as soon as he's released, because you know that he's released as a contact. I mean, really,
mhm.
he's being released so he can be traced
Yeah,
to more revolutionaries, and that's what they do. And yeah, it's I mean that's why the last reel of the film, which is the reel outside of prison, we tried to keep it really, really tight because and we had a few tangents that were kind of amazing, but because of this ticking time bomb of he's going to get they are tracking him, he is going to get into trouble. We couldn't delay for we couldn't go too far afield. We really
right.
had to stick with um, will they catch up or not? And eventually they do, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's he comes home to his mother, he's at dinner,
Hmm.
and then he's being photographed.
Pretty much. Yeah.
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 Um, yeah. No, there's an inevitability to, his story, but it's you're swept up in, there's something that sort of like elevates it from being a harsh reality to this movie reality by the sort of the recurrence of this sweeping Hollywood movie that he's sort of living in. So,
Yeah, he lives in it, and he also fantasizes his own. Well, no spoilers, but his you know the a chapter of his life
mhm,
becomes that another version of that at the in the finale. So
right.
he can't shake it, and he shouldn't shake it. I mean, it's his way of coping with the worst things imaginable at that
Mhm,
point. So
right. Yeah, I almost thought at the beginning, the beads around his bed were the prison within a prison.
mhm.
He's not just,
Good, that's good.
well, I am looking for stuff, and it's there, it just seemed like the way he was initially communicating, and then he comes out of that space, or they both go into that and retreat into that cage together. No, I was very interested in the sort of gradual softening of their dynamic because Valentine is rejecting him, criticizing him. He every time he's critical of himself, he's called out for it. Like so he goes from like where these on polar opposites to sort of building each other up to essentially being each other's support system. And that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, it's a tough thing to do. I mean, I just felt like I wonder what it was like for the parts where you're like locked in the cell with them you know, was that easy for you? Was it all in the performance and the writing, or
It
were you just
was
like, where do I go here?
well, I mean, easy. It was hard in the sense that it was all about the tiniest nuances of performance, which is really fun, but challenging because you don't want to overlook something that is the pivot for an entire scene, and it could be just a little smile or a half smile or an eye thing or like there are these tiny gestural things that they're doing in these close-ups in those scenes that really make the meaning. And I wanted to find them and honor them and build from them. So sometimes the most exciting pivot would be a moment in the middle of a scene. So I would, that would be my select, and then I would try to build toward it and away from it. It doesn't always work that way, but
Mm,
sometimes you find like your North Star in some little bit of dailies that becomes the meaning. Um, but the other thing about those scenes is they're very, very intentionally designed so that every prison scene has a different kind of look.
mhm,
There's clearly the one shot from the ceiling, which is quite different, but just in terms of like what lens are we in, and how much of the room do you see, and do you see the other bed, and is it long lens, is it wide? Like I mean, there's a whole host of different ways that the cinematographer and Bill figured out how to make um, each scene in the cell its own um color, its own texture, its own color. Like the light can change quite a bit. I mean, there's an open window and
mhm,
it's sunlight or it's the tungsten light from the prison yard, or it's nighttime and it's raining, and like you can create quite a lot with one open window. So there's also that. So I was given already a wealth of texture within the individual scenes and choices already made. And then from that, I really had to just, pare it down and focus and be very rigorous around, dialogue and with with Bill and with Greg Yolen, our producer, like really look for redundancies and try to make them as tight as can be, and all the stuff you do. But the difference
Mhm.
is when you don't want to cheat time because you're in a cell and you want to feel real time, how much can you still like push things along because you're always trying to condense and and compress and stuff. So
No, I love that there's like you have sort of like a North Star bin in the Avid. It's like an
Mhm.
emotional a moment, a blank, a look
Yeah.
away, a look toward
Mhm.
something where you can say like I might want to back into these moments here, right?
Yeah,
Because they're
100%.
important and distinguish it from, this is something you can't get on stage. You'll never get that close. So you have the benefit of having
Well, except
coverage.
all the Broadway shows that have cameras,
Well,
pretty
that's
close up.
true.
Yeah,
What did I
some of
just,
which
yeah,
are fantastic, but yeah,
yeah, actually, what was is it based on a
I
Hollywood
think it was
movie?
Sunset
What's the
Boulevard.
Sunset Boulevard, right? Someone told me to go see that one.
Very
Um,
cinematic.
yes, I want to. Actually, maybe Happy Ending is what I saw that pretty recently, but that wasn't, well, there was some emotional video work in that too, I want to
Was
say.
there? I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's really worth seeing. It wasn't original cast, but I didn't know and I didn't care.
Mhm.
So look, I know we want to talk about the Jeff Buckley film too, because we only
Sure,
have
I love
limited
that.
amounts of times. But we're talking about cutting documentary, and you said you knew of him, but you weren't like in the, but
Yeah.
right, you weren't
Um,
like a super fan, and there are people who are really like adore and worship him. But
mhm.
I think like and you tell me how your experience was, but like kind of cutting any documentary is sort of like, you know, going to graduate school with a major in that
Yeah, yeah.
person. Or so how did I guess how'd you get on the film, and then what did you learn about him and get more involved in his life and work?
I went from 0 to 11 very quickly. I mean, first, I mean, Amy Berg was a colleague, my friend's colleague and friend. So she was very much in my film community, although we hadn't worked together. She pursued me, and I felt honestly kind of unqualified because I was not a Jeff fan, and I did feel qualified in the sense that I lived in the East Village in the 90s when Jeff was there. And in fact, I lived a block away from Shanae where he played. And I certainly knew of him and I knew his music marginally well, but like it's just like when you do a documentary, you really become, when you do a music doc, that's a biography, it's like you become the biographer. And that's that's a very big responsibility because actual biographers, spend years doing research and find the truth. And for an editor, you're finding the truth through, through source footage, but the juxtapositions that you're creating also create their own truth. So it's a big
Mhm.
responsibility, and it almost felt overwhelming to think um, that I was Jeff's storyteller. Of course, Amy was my partner and my guide and the filter, but a lot of what I was empowered to do was really find a visual language for it. And I have to say, I co-edited the movie with Stacey Goldade, so she very much was part of this process as well. But it was really about like how to take this music and let it tell the story and find a visual language that supported it without feeling like it was a hat on a hat, like we were just literalizing the lyrics or
Mhm.
using the most obvious biographical part to illustrate something that he might have been referring to in one of the songs. It was much more emotional. And because I didn't really know the songs well, I could just respond to them um, emotionally and really like it almost felt like a kind of a channeling or like I mean it's ridiculous, but like I felt like I needed Jeff's permission, and I needed to feel, if not his spirit, then the spirit of the music to say, this belongs in this part of my life story. Meaning,
Right.
like this may not have been written at this time in his life, but it reminds me of this. It feels like this. Like the Benjamin Britten song, the name which escapes me right now, which I use near his death in Memphis in a montage of the people that he calls before he's before he has the breakthrough with the second album. It's a beautiful, beautiful sort of chorale, and it was written earlier, but it felt, but it has a mournful quality that felt so emotional to me. And
Hmm.
regardless of what his intentions were writing the song, it spoke to that moment. And I was incredibly lucky that the people making the movie empowered me to have those feelings and make those choices and then accept a lot of those choices and build on those choices. It was really a spectacular experience because every time I said to the producers, well, I don't know this, I don't know that. They said, that's good, that's good, that's good.
Hmm.
It's
In a
not-
way, it is actually because you're not going to be, because you may get criticized by certain super fans that that song couldn't have done this because it was written back here and it wouldn't literally relate, but you don't care, which is actually in a way important, but you're not telling a literal truth, right? I mean, a documentary isn't a legal brief. They're supposed to be, you
Yeah,
know, I mean,
some are more so, but yeah, for
yeah, I
sure.
mean, look, you're not gonna rewrite his life, but it's an
Yeah.
interpretation
Mhm.
of his life. So it's more, there's more to it than just the the sort of the facts of the matter, right? What could or couldn't have actually occurred. Curious about creating high quality YouTube videos? Enroll in video editing and production classes at Manhattan Edit Workshop to sharpen your skills and turn a hobby into a career. Start your journey to becoming a pro today.
Well, there's a moment when we finally give Hallelujah its story beat, the song Hallelujah,
Mhm.
the Leonard Cohen song. We like that scene could have been about like Jeff's in Paris and what's his relationship to the music industry outside of the US. It could be about Leonard Cohen and how did the song become um, Jeff's voice. It could have been about Jeff as the interpreter, the cover artist versus Jeff, the writer, and the tension around that. I mean, all that stuff is kind of in the movie, but we were like cracking our heads, and we're like, at like the last decision I think I made before I left to do Spider-Woman and Stacy took over was this idea that that moment of Hallelujah was really about his relationship with his girlfriend Joan Wasser and the particularly the sexual dynamic and how the erotic and the need and the erotic and the love are all like sort of um manifested together in this idea of like this outpouring of emotion to all these women in the audience and like sort of like putting the sexual out in public, but it's also very, very intimate. I mean, I'm giving like concrete words to something that's much more emotional, but it
Mhm.
felt like that was the time to talk about them
Right.
in the middle of the song, which was obviously written by Leonard Cohen in his own context. But
Right.
in this movie, it felt like that was the moment for that because the lyrics were sexual, but also because um, it felt right. It felt right.
Right. Well, that's honestly, people ask, why did you make these decisions? And sometimes it's because your gut tells you, which is
Yeah.
that's an important tool as an editor, is to have a gut, to have, this
Yeah.
like emotional. Now, you said you left to do another film. What happens when you say, all right, this is my feeling on how this song should be used and how it, how it's applied, and then you leave and someone says, well, that was great, but so much, like, now five different things have changed here, and so that doesn't really work. And are you still involved, or
Yeah.
do you, okay, so it's not like you left the film entirely, you just weren't physically in the editing room with the film.
Well, no, I mean, I left to do Spider-Woman, but I stayed on to watch cuts and stuff like that. And like the thing about a great relationship with co-editors is that you do trust each other, and whatever feedback you have is constructive. And I
Mhm.
think that you can have like those can be some of the most powerful creative relationships because they don't have to be combative. And Stacy and I had a great relationship. And
Mhm.
I really admired the work that she did, some of which was restructuring and some of which was building new scenes, like the scene at Chennai was reconceived. And and rebuilt and beautifully done. And because I understood why, you can become defensive if you don't really understand why things are being taken apart. And sometimes you feel like things get taken apart just because somebody wants to get their hands on it. But a great relationship is about really understanding this works because of this, and this has this intention, and this is that intention. And films are never done. Films are just
Mhm.
like pulled out of our hands
Abandoned.
when
Yeah, that's what they say.
when we run out of money and time. But there's always more to do. I mean, sometimes it's good to stop because
Mhm.
a film is a time capsule of a certain moment. Um, but there was more work to do, and Stacy did it fantastically, and I
Mhm.
was so grateful to her. And also, we honored each other's styles, and it was really good.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think also it's like if at your core both of you are servicing story, right? You're honoring the story you're telling and not ego, right? Which doesn't seem like that's
Yeah.
really in the editor's makeup all that much. I don't meet that many editors
I mean,
who.
it really can't be. I mean, it could. I mean, it is sometimes, but it's not a healthy way to make anything because you're not looking at story. You're not looking at characters.
Mhm.
Be inside characters. And of course, Amy Berg, our director, she knows Jeff the best. She knows the archive the best. Jesse Swenson, our main assistant editor, also knew the archive better than anybody. And there was continuity on that project, even though it went on for a very long time. There was always, and Ryan Heller, one of our producers, like there were people who just really understood. Um, what we had and what we were trying to say. And as it went through various twists and turns, like they could keep it, they're the filters that keep the stuff in that's relevant and take out what's not relevant. And with a biography, even for somebody who's lived not a long time, only till 30, like Jeff, it's still an infinite amount of choices. And we made
Sure.
choices. We didn't show every artistic collaborator in his life and every bit of music that he wrote. But, you know, the point of view of that movie is one of, it's through his relationships. It's through love and vulnerability and romantic relationships mostly. And
I
that's
can't
that's the
wait to.
particular lens, yeah.
I thought I did my homework for today, so now I have to go and check this movie out. I mean,
I
I
think
was
you'll
a
like it.
yeah. I mean, I was where I lived in the East Village in the '90s. So where is Shanae?
St. Mark's between First and A,
Near Jaffa?
across the street.
There you go. Okay. So shows you certain things you remember like it's yesterday, and certain things are just like, wait,
It
what
was a
was.
tiny place, tiny place.
No, my friend lived in a basement apartment almost next door to that. He had a
Oh
drain
yeah,
in his floor. Yeah, when he first moved to New York, it was
nice.
the only thing he could afford, and it was right around that spot.
Yeah,
So
I was on Seventh.
okay, yeah, my buddy was on six between B and C, and my car got stolen in front of his house. This is important stuff for this interview, by the
Sure.
way.
Yeah.
But you know what? I will leave people wanting more because I think we could talk more about this. But I also want people to go and see the film. So how do you? Kiss of the Spider Woman is out in theaters, or is it available to stream also? Because I watched it on
I
the
don't I
basement.
don't know if you can stream it yet. It was in theaters. Now it probably still is around the world. I don't know if
Hmm.
domestically it is now.
Okay.
Um, but soon to stream.
Hmm.
And It's Never Over. Jeff Buckley is on HBO or HBO Max or whatever
I
whatever.
think it's just Max now, whatever it is.
Or just HBO.
I don't know. And when Netflix buys them, it'll be something else.
It, keep- yeah, it keeps flipping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to check that out. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and with our viewers today. It was really, as always, a lot of fun. By the way, I have Savages is sitting dead across from my desk, by the way.
Oh
I
yeah.
have like, because I have posters in my office, and I was sick of looking at Walter White in a yellow suit saying "Hail to the King." That was in there,
Hmm.
and Savages was like just to my right, and I love the poster.
Hmm.
So I want it in front of me, and I'll do if I'm in the office, which I am a couple days a week, and I do it like something like this. I'll have that behind me, and
It's a
uh,
great book. Yeah.
yeah, with its own little piece of theater, but not. anywhere like Kiss of the Spider Woman. It's not a play. There's a little play with
Oh, the
movement
experimental play in at the end. Yeah. Mhm.
at the end. Yeah, no, it's a great moment. All right. Well, thanks again for your time.
So much fun.
And
Thank
I
you.
hope you enjoy the next couple of weeks into the holidays and have a great
Thanks.
2000, end of 25. And we'll hopefully talk soon again in 2026.
I would love to. Thank
All
you again.
right. Take
Okay.
care.
Bye-bye.